There are lots of things that your buyers may tell you they want, but there's again a difference between what are legal requirements and requirements of the FDA and what may be additional requirements placed on you by your buyer in the United States. So, requirements to focus on. The Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, as I said earlier, is the overriding regulation, but within that law, which has been amended many times, we'll focus on the Bioterrorism Act, labeling, and other areas of importance such as low-acid canned food regulations, HACCP, and good manufacturing practices requirements. So firstly, the U.S. Bioterrorism Act. This came about in 2002. It required that effective October of 2003, that companies register their facility with FDA, a facility being a factory or a warehouse, so a site where you're producing the product or storing the product. And in essence, this registration requirement allowed FDA to gather information about the products being shipped to the United States. So you're providing to FDA in this registration information about who, what, where, when, all about your company, about the products that you're producing and that you intend to export to the United States. The registration is done through what's called a Food Facility Registration Module, or an FFRM. This can be done directly with FDA, or you can have a third party assist you actually in completing the registration. It is a one-time registration. However, it must be updated within 60 days of any change in your data. So if you've indicated to FDA that you're producing seafood and then you launch into a produce line as well or some other type of processed foods, you need to update your registration. If the contact details for your facility have changed and your production manager who's listed in your registration as your emergency contact is no longer in that location, then that information needs to be updated as well. Now, once you've registered, you are assigned an 11-digit number, and this number again is given by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, but that is all you will receive from FDA. You'll receive this 11-digit number. Registrar Corp is a private company. We do assist with registrations, and we will issue a certificate of registration that is a third-party verification. It serves as evidence to potential or current customers of yours that you have registered with FDA and you've complied with those registration requirements. Within the registration requirement, you are required to designate a U.S. agent for FDA communications. The U.S. agent must have a physical presence in the United States, must be available to communicate with FDA 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's very important that whoever you choose to be your U.S. agent, whether it is a private company such as ourselves, or whether it is a customer or even a relative, that they are available to answer FDA if FDA contacts them with questions about your facility or a particular shipment. The essence of an agent, the entire role of the agent, is the agent speaks for you as a registered firm. When the agent speaks to FDA, it is as though you are speaking with FDA yourself. You may have many customers in the United States. You may have customers out on the West Coast or the East Coast, but only one agent for FDA communications is designated in your registration with FDA. And that is, again, is the company or the individual that FDA will contact if they have a question about your shipment. Now let's take a quick look at how many companies are actually registered with FDA. There are approximately 370,000 companies worldwide that are registered. About 150,000 of those companies are here in the United States, and approximately 260,000 are registered all over in about another 150 countries around the world. We can see here are some statistics that will give you an idea, and for the countries, your countries that interest us today, Cambodia 28, Laos 27, we have the Philippines at 1,561 and Vietnam at 5,551 companies. Those numbers give you a little bit of an idea as well of how active those countries are in exporting, certainly to the United States. Now, another part of the Bioterrorism Act is something called prior notice. So once you have registered your facility with FDA and you're ready to begin shipping to the United States, you're required to file something called prior notice, which is in essence a notification, submission of information that you give to FDA for each and every shipment of food or beverages that will arrive in the United States. It is a time-sensitive submission where you must tell FDA details about the shipment, where it is coming from, how many cases, how many cartons, who's the manufacturer, who it's going to, what the product is, when it will arrive. These are all the different details that you provide to FDA in the submission called prior notice. Prior notice is not an approval. You don't submit the data and then FDA says, okay, it's approved, go ahead and ship it. It won't be stopped. What prior notice allows FDA to do, it allows them to look at the approximately 20,000 shipments of food that arrives into the United States every day, and it allows them to target their resources and target their inspections by deciding which shipments they would like to take a closer look at. It's impossible for them to look at everything. And in fact, FDA only inspects less than 2% of all shipments of food products arriving into the United States. So it's actually a very, very small number of shipments that physically are looked at by FDA. Part of that, again, goes back to the information that's submitted in the prior notice. It allows FDA to focus their resources on what they consider to be the highest risk shipments. Talk briefly about food labeling. Again, I could spend a lot of time, an hour even, 2 hours just on food labeling, but let me give you some very basic guidelines on food labeling. All labeling must be in English. However, bilingual labels, trilingual, as many languages as you would like, are permitted. And the only rule you need to focus on is that if you have any foreign language on your label, the entire label will need to be translated. So in other words, you have to have certain things said about your product in English. And if you choose to translate it, then you must translate everything that's said in English. You must translate it entirely as well into Vietnamese. This, again, is to prevent companies from making certain very specific statements or claims about their product in their native language in hopes that perhaps someone here in the United States, the Vietnamese population, will see that product and maybe there's claims on there in Vietnamese, but those same claims are not made in English. So again, English, but any other language is fine as long as it's translating what is said, the mandatory information that's said in English. There are very strict guidelines, regulation concerning the formatting of the nutrition fact chart, which is what I have up here in the little picture. Also regulations and requirements on the font size of the lettering. There are requirements regarding what ingredients are permitted, and also there are ingredients that are not permitted, non-GRAS ingredients. And an area where companies often have a lot of difficulties is with health claims. There are certain claims that you may be able to make about your product with regards to health benefits, but those are very closely regulated by FDA. So if you have a product that you want to make claims, you'll need to be very cautious about that.